And after the fire, there was a still small voice. And that was God. And so I think that whole idea of like, there can be complete chaos and all these things going on, and you just wait on the Lord for the still small voice. Something about that like is very encouraging to me. Like, he's not into just bravado. Like, he is still and small, but right. Okay, the very first question is, what religion are y'all?
Christian.
Yes.
Ding!
What church do you go to? Is it a Foursquare church? No, we're not Foursquare. The college we went to was Assemblies of God, but I wouldn't say that we're necessarily Assemblies of God, like, affiliated.
We just follow Jesus.
Yes. But we go to a church, we go every Sunday, as we can with our son, just because we kind of go based on sicknesses and things that we hear.
If we hear on Facebook that someone's sick, then we usually don't go because we gotta protect Sully.
What about our favorite Bible verses?
I've never really been someone that's like had a favorite verse, but I'd say right now
It's this one.
what it is what is it? Proverbs 9:10.
Yeah.
The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. You never see someone who's not a Christian that's wise, because it's like, what are they wise in? So the more you pursue God to seek wisdom, the more you understand who God is, and the more you're going to fear him because you know who God is. So I just think I'm like on this kick in life where I just want to be around wise people and just become more wise. So I think that verse is in my head right now.
That's the one. 1 Kings 19:11 through 13, and that's all about the story of Elijah. And he was persecuted heavily, and then the Lord was going to speak to him. And it says, "And in that moment the Lord passed by. A great and mighty wind was tearing at the mountains and was shattering cliffs before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire there was a still small voice." And that was God. And so I think that whole idea of like, there can be complete chaos and all these things going on, and you just wait on the Lord for the still small voice. Something about that like is very encouraging to me. Like, he's not into just bravado. Like, he is still and small, but right. How do you keep faith when everything feels stacked against you?
We were talking about this one before.
Yeah.
And it's easy because when you give your life to Christ, you know that it's not going to be an easy walk. If it wasn't an easy walk for Jesus, why would it be an easy walk for anyone else? Like, the Bible talks all the time about how trials and tribulations are good, and they kind of shape you as a follower. So you just gotta thank God for them, you know?
I think we talked about this too. Like, I honestly struggled with this a lot more when we had our son, and I felt like, you know, where is God in this? Like, it's definitely the hardest thing that I feel like I've had to emotionally go through as a person, of just so many people's different opinions on things, and then watching him go through hardship when I'm supposed to be the one that protects him. And it's for his own good, but it's still hard, if that makes sense. And so for me, there are so many times where I was like, why hasn't God changed this circumstance? You know, if he gives good gifts, this doesn't feel like that right now. And so there's a verse in 1 Corinthians 13, and it talks about us seen through a mirror dimly now, but one day we'll see clearly. We'll see him face to face. And that honestly gives me a lot of hope of like, I don't understand the circumstance, but I do understand who God is and that he is good. And so if I see this much, you know, he sees this. And so whatever he's doing in our lives through these tough circumstances will be good.
All right. Let's
More
go.
later.
Let's go. We're just going to get some cool B-roll and make it look super fancy. Cinematic.
This is Billy's jam.
Yeah. Let's do it. things have changed. Our faith Q&A has a pause. We just finished a hike, and a woman and her son, their car's broken down, and she was visibly distraught.
Yes, and there's no service up here.
There's no service. So we're driving down the mountain. We have her father's phone number, her insurance information, her license plate, her exact location, and we're going to call her dad so he can call her a tow truck. If we can't get a hold of him, then we're just going to call a tow truck. And then worst case scenario, we're just going to go get him.
Yep.
Because they're just waiting there, trusting that we somehow save them.
Yeah, and it's a woman with her 5-year-old kid.
Yes, so.
Poor lady.
Yes, but they have food.
They do have food.
They have food and water.
And it's not that cold
And
out.
it's not dark yet, so.
Yeah. We got it. Heroes to the rescue.
Yeah.
Car died, and so she is stuck with no service. So,
And her phone died, and her car died.
That was crazy.
this day turned out so different than we thought it was going to be.
Long story short, we picked her up.
We ended up taking them
We ended up taking them in,
on like an hour drive.
yeah,
Yeah.
hour and a half.
Our kid was super funny.
She was very funny.
Yeah, so and then
She
we
was
went
nice.
and got Chinese food, and it was super disgusting.
It was terrible.
So,
Now,
we're getting Frosties.
we're getting Frosties.
And we'll answer the last of the questions.
We were going to eat our Frosties in front of you guys, but then, and by that I mean in front of the camera, but then I realized that's disgusting, and nobody wants to see somebody eat. It was also leaking everywhere, and now my hands are like super sticky.
They were the worst Frosties ever. I'm such a negative Nelly in this video, but...
Wait,
Oh, bye.
mukbang. I just learned what that means.
It's when people film and eat at the same time. What are your spiritual giftings and how do they complement each other? He's never going to say it, but Billy is really gifted in capacities of leadership and encouragement. I'm serious. Like when we were in college, like people do want to follow you and you're a good moral leader, and I love that about you. And then also encouragement. Billy's like somebody who's very hard to shake. Like in any situation you can see the good and like remind others of that. And I need that. I rely on that a lot in you.
Taylor has like this very strong, not conviction,
Like
but, like,
discernment.
yeah, discernment, like right from wrong. There's no bending anything. What she says is the truth. What she says she's gonna do, she does. And very trustworthy.
Thank you.
Well,
That's it. If
That's
you
it.
guys have further questions,
follow Jesus. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, follow his commandments. Rule number 3. What's rule number 3?
it's so blurry.
What's rule number 3? Hey,
Rule number 3 is surround yourself with like-minded people that you can lean and grow with.